This is a comparison and correlation of two fields of science and evidence which shows direct and precise correlation in sequence, function, and content of 20 components of two modern and two ancient systems. When Nikola Tesla said, "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence." Not sure what he meant by non-physical, because I don't know if he knew everything at the time. And as we continue to study, we begin to find more and more non-physical things are actually physical. For instance, before the microscope, we didn't know bacteria were physical. We would have considered them non-physical, unable to view, but not able to quantify. And I think we're going to take a step forward here today in what we may or may not consider non-physical, because as we do this correlation, the thing that really stuck out to me was how biological all the mystery and magic really is. Carl Jung said the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. And I agree with this wholeheartedly, because the chemical reactions are absolutely trackable biologically. That is another product of this examination. What I learned in this is that the mystery and magic contained in what a lot of people might consider to be spiritual transformations and synchronicities, another Carl Jung, right? Synchronicities, things of this nature. There's a lot of synchronicity in this examination. We're going to take the 20 days of the Maya, the 20 I-Ching hexagrams, those two things of which I know quite well. This is what I've been studying for well over a decade, 15 years maybe. 20 primordial elements, tin to ytterbium, those I've been studying for maybe about 10 years. I think I made the correlation about 11 years ago. The 20 standard proteinogenic amino acids, those are new. I've just started studying them. So, but immediately upon doing so and seeing what I saw, I immediately had to put this together. Now, the first thing about the I-Ching and the Maya is the first 20 hexagrams are the 20 days, and they come in pairs. So that's very important. When I was looking at the amino acids, I noticed that some would have names that gave the appearance they were pairs, but upon closer examination, they paired with these pairs more appropriately. And there are elements or acids which are considered twins, particularly praseodymium and neodymium are considered twins, but they're not pairs. And so that's an important point I wanted to make before we get started, that there are pairs and then there are twins, and those two are not necessarily always the same. The base fixed model for these 20 components in all four of these systems adhere to this model which the Maya and the I-Ching put forth. And you can see very clearly, if you take a quick glance at the I-Ching hexagrams, you will see that the pairs are easily identifiable, whereas with the 20 days, not so much, but it's known that they are pairs. But the I-Ching has really, they minimized a vast amount of knowledge in the descriptors. I focus on the descriptors. So in the I-Ching, we do have these hexagrams and these broken lines, but honestly, they do match up in shape pretty good. But mostly I look at the descriptors. The descriptors are incredible when you apply them to people and events born on those days. And these days have been tracked for well over 6,000 years. The I-Ching, I don't know how old that is. I get different accounts. It doesn't matter to me. I know that it's at least 6,000 years old because there's other cultures that had these days. These are the most preserved, most well preserved, and are definitely a major part of the cultures from which they come. So there is no absence of ability to study them. It's very easy. There's always plenty of access. So no reason for this not to have been known. These have been around for a long time. A lot of people like to talk about how amazing these two systems are with their product. Like the Maya predicting things, they like to bring it up all the time. I didn't get into too much of that. I went right to the core. What are the components of it? And in the I-Ching, I got the first 20 are the 20 days. That was confirmed a long time ago. And these go across the earth. These are well known. And there's the pairs. Just so you know, I'll bring it up as I go when it's needed to examine a set of twins that are not pairs in the amino acids and the elements. So in this graph, I'm just showing that in the circular form of the days, when you keep a circular calendar, this is a 20-day calendar, and with the white line, one of the biggest things that stuck out to me was the connection between glutamate and proline. And so I drew a line across to show that that's like what I would call a hemispheric line. That's it's not a complete 180 across. It's a hemispheric, and that actually my diagram's just a little kiltered to the left, so that actually if I raise that up, it would be perfectly straight up and down. But the blue line going from Kiwak to Toj. Kiwak is like the voice, and Toj is the ears. So they kind of work together. The opposites work together. So when you're examining the days, most often it's so much easier to put it in a circular form. That's how I track them. That's how I view them. That's how I see them. And it is a cycle that just keeps going, and extremely reliable, very discernible, easily trackable, and that's how it works. The green line is just another example where I'm showing that the polar opposites have a connection, like with between the day of E and Eek is known that's the water. E is the water and Eek is the wind. And so you have hurricanes and floods and things like this that you might notice on those days. I just wanted to bring that up just to give you a glimpse into how I examine and view these things. certainly not a dissertation on how it's done, but basically you have 20 descriptors, you follow the days, every day has a name. The Maya used to actually name their children on the day they were born, like the day. Like if you were born on the day of Bots, you would be known as something Bots. Like Bots would be in your name. That's a thing. Europeans would put my name Odell is actually, it's a task related name. A lot of names are task related, like and my last name originally supposedly there's a conflict with that, but Wood Hills, and so we were the woodsmen that worked in the Wood Hills. Other people, their last names, very common to have task related names. Well, it was a little bit more refined to name your child after the day they were born. But that's only one cycle. These 20 days, just like the 20 elements between tin and ytterbium, that's only one segment of all the cycles and everything that's going on. I'm not going to get into any of these other cycles. We're only examining the 20. This is what the I-Ching, my I-Ching calendar looks like in the conglomerated system. I've got the 36 decans of the 20 days, and then there's the 8 masters inside. That makes 64. That's the 64 hexagrams. I also wanted to clear that up because the first 20 of the I-Ching, as they're listed in my source, which is on Sacred Text Archives, and I'll put a link in this descriptor, of course. The first 20 are the 20 days. The next 36 are the 36 decans, and then which are just 10-day time periods of the solar year, and then the final 8 are the 8 masters, and those match up perfectly. I've got it shown here exactly where they go in placement, although the 36 aren't completely listed, but it's number 21 would be axe, and number 56 would be I think yogi. Yeah, I think it's different in every system, but I have them laid out here in the decan order because this is also correlated with Hindu and everything else. So yeah, I've got a lot of work into this. This is the most exciting thing I've ever done. This is the like I said, the 20 standard proteinogenic amino acids, alanine through valine, and the 20 periodic elements, tin through ytterbium. And I only use the primordial elements. And there's a reason I can explain that because it didn't work when I used the non-primordial. And once I pulled them out, everything fell into place perfectly. So that's how that worked. This is where I've displayed this on the internet, is at timeschool.com. There's an image there that shows the periodic table with the 84 primordial elements combined with the different timekeeping systems that I track. Okay? So I throw that in there. We're going to get going with bots, the first day and the first amino acid and the first I-Ching hexagram. And right away, immediately, I looked at it and I said, wow, it blew my mind. I had been keeping these examples of people who are born on these days. And I'm very familiar with the I-Ching and the 20 days of the Maya. And so when I saw alanine and I clicked on it and I said, wow, it's just, it's so reminiscent of all these other systems. It's like it starts out with this very all-encompassing type of energy. I didn't need to get any more into it to already be intrigued. And I said, wow, I just never considered that the primary biological components of life would be part of this. I considered that the material the basic material was. I knew about tin, and I know about the 20 elements that go between tin and ytterbium. That very, very solid, and you'll see as we go. But the thing they all have in common is this is a base program which contains everything. So you have, as examples in human beings, you have, the other thing I'm going to do today, which is profound, is I did track and check the birth dates of scientists, many scientists in this process, and many of them landed right on the day of either discovering that amino acid, discovering that exact element, or other things that were very closely associated. So I keep track of them. Leakey is the one who showed the skulls of the monkey with the humans, right, and showed the progression. He is a major example of a scientist on bots. It's symbolized by the monkey. Doesn't necessarily mean you are a monkey. That's not the thing. It's an energy. This is considered to be a human calendar. The 20 days are always taught as you have 20 fingers and toes, and those are the 20 days. And I'm starting to see a lot more biologically why that's the case. But we'll just keep going. Judge Judy is a family court judge that got famous and rich. Leakey put together the ape family and the human family. Manson had the Manson family. And Joe Rogan, whose show starts with hoo hoo ha ha, is himself born on the day of bots. Same day as Manson. He might not appreciate that, but either way, he wants to talk to the whole human family. Joe Rogan will talk to anybody about anything, and he wants to absorb it all. He's got it all. He's got a million things he would like to do, and I don't know this, but I'm willing to bet he's probably pretty handy around the house, because on this day, a lot of the people are jack of all trades. They can do all kinds of stuff. And that's part of the essence of this package, is it comes with everything it needs. Tony Robbins, who was born on this day, said, each of us has everything we need to succeed within ourselves if we can only learn to access and maximize it. And I'm saying, wow, he's really projecting there his own inner soul, his being, of what he was born in. And why people produce the products that they do because they're born on certain days, that is a biological or a physical process I don't have the answer to, but it definitely works out. Okay? I think that is another thing we're going to easily prove today. Second day is E. This is Quan and arginine. Arginine has to do with the circulatory system. And it also, the thing that immediately jumped out to me is the preterm infants are unable to synthesize or create arginine internally, making the amino acid nutritionally essential for them. So it's like, so at what point is a person, a human being, able to synthesize arginine? Because if you're born too early, you can't synthesize it. That means it's something that comes in late. This has a lot to do with birth, or the later birth process. E is the path. It is the corridor. It is, in the primal sense, it is the pathway, the birth canal. And the hexagram even illustrates it well with just this is the only hexagram that has all broken lines. So there's a straight path up through, and it's a water day. It's always associated with water. This is the mist that covers the ground, and antimony is used in fire extinguishers. I think that's quite amazing, even though that one particular point may not provide enough evidence for science. I'm definitely saying that if you continue to look at all the applications of antimony and arginine, you will find that this has a lot to do with a natural path carving process in the progression of energies that create life. And so the image of the stream coming down through the mountains is imagery to illustrate the process or the function of this. And I was also quite surprised to notice that even the um, pictorial display of arginine really imitates this, because I went and compared the other ones and I said, wow, they don't all do this, but this one does. Okay, and I mean, that picture of that stream is immediately the imagery that comes to mind almost every time I think of E. So, and not hard to find good examples. I looked up, the first thing I did was I said, well, the most famous, I wanted to find who was the most famous person to help other people give birth, right? Well, it's not that easy because midwives aren't recorded very much, and but I did find immediately on one page where I typed in most famous midwives, I think it was, she came up number one, and her name is Martha Ballard. And these are very easy searches. This is how I do it. I didn't have to dig hard for this person, is what I'm trying to convey. She came up first. She helped deliver over 800 babies, and she was present for 1,000 more. She had 9 herself, and she was listed as one of the most famous nurses, primarily because she took notes on these things. So that's why she was famous for helping birth babies. And E is the day of when the water breaks. You know, that's the energy of it. I'm not saying everybody's water breaks on that day. Of course, that's not true. We have to think more deeply and holistically when we're examining these energies. Although you will see that. Yes, as this happens over and over and over and over and over, these energies are intricately involved in our lives and our biology and everything, spiritually also. Spirit is not beyond time. Georgius Agricola, I searched, the only thing I searched on that was I said, well, who made railroad tracks? Because that's also one of the main imageries for the day of E, is I'll show a railroad track going into a tunnel, because that really is idyllic to try to put forth imagery for the essence of this energy. And I came back with the first guy that comes up. It's the first guy was Georgius Agricola. He was just recorded as the first guy. I'm sure he wasn't the first, but he found a way to birth the minerals out of the ground. So mining, he was into mining, and of course when you're mining, you're burrowing into the womb of the earth and you're extracting these, minerals, whatever you want there, and you've got to figure out a way to get them back up. And so he did that. So in the context of midwifery, I would say that Georgius Agricola is a very good example of midwifery in mining. He helped birth these things out of the ground. And he was born on 11E, of course. Clinton, this guy DeWitt Clinton, was he's the one who wanted to build the Erie Canal. It's a big deal up north. The Erie Canal was crazy. They were like, they called it Clinton's folly. Everybody laughed at him. Nobody ever thought it would happen. But what did he do? He ended up connecting the Great Lakes to the Atlantic Ocean. And to this day, it's it's a wonderful you know human feat of engineering that still stands. It's still used. You can put your sailboat in the water and Rochester or anywhere near the canal and go all the way straight over to the ocean. Saves you a ton of time. And at the time he completed it, was the second longest canal. So there's another canal, not the birth canal, the mineral canal, and the Erie Canal. All of these people born on the day of E. And the guy who exposed everybody's birth canal, Hugh Hefner, he would take women who were of, perceived beauty and hire them, put them in the magazine, and expose all of their parts. And he was born on the day of E, the path, and one of his most famous quotes are, "There are many roads to Mecca." So the road and the path and the water, this is what this is all about. Very easy to find examples. That appears to be exactly what arginine is all about, although I'm sure it has all kinds of deeper functions that we have not yet discovered. I will say that. I think arginine is probably, well, I don't think we've discovered all the functions of all the amino acids yet. I think there's more to come, even just based on looking at the first two. Then it starts getting very interesting. We move into the second pair. This is the beginning of the second pair. Now, in the process of life, this is where the plant wants to push up out of the ground. And the Kuhn hexagram actually talks about this in great detail. And it is the subject of the hexagram is the plant pushing through the dirt to expose itself to sunlight, to reach up and grasp life, and it's the telluric forces. I believe it's the day descriptor that's actually on the official government culture page for Guatemala that actually lists this as the telluric forces. They have the 20 days on the culture site at the Guatemala official government site. But this is also the necessity of agriculture. So Aj is definitely about agriculture. The I-Ching is definitely about plants. It's definitely about life trying to push its way forward and find a way. And the element is tellurium, and it grabs energy from the sun. Are you kidding me? So cadmium and tellurium. And in the garden, where I have combined the elements into circular calendars, cadmium and tellurium are right next to each other. So a little different way than looking at it from the perspective of what I call the broken model. The broken model is the one they teach everybody, and they gotta drop the lanthanides down there and put them separate because they don't quite fit in there. So we're gonna just yank that stuff out of there. And I said, wow, it looks broken, it looks confusing, and so I wanted to fix it. And so that's my presentation. Cadmium and tellurium are right next to each other, right under the solar panels, right in the center of the air quadrant, across from the sun, and that it works. So I don't know what to say about that, but asparagine, the fact that it came right literally from asparagus, there's nothing better to put in your garden, especially here in the north. Like, it's the best, absolutely the best thing to put in your garden, because asparagus comes back every year. It's a perennial, right? It comes back every year, and sometimes it'll last for like 15, 20 years. So you plant this one time, and every year it comes up, and you've got tons of food. And the rod, the staff of power, actually is that it's that geometry. Like, that's exactly what everybody envisions when you think about Aj, is the staff, uh, that the elder or the leader of the village would carry. But even more importantly, like in the the Bible, which matches this, by the way, pretty sure it's right in the same exact chapter 3 of Exodus. But the rod, the one that grows buds, and so asparagus is a very interesting vegetable. It is absolutely the best way to portray this day, and there it is in the amino acids, and yeah. So Judy Garland, the whole movie was about agriculture. This really is all about, Aj is about the distribution of the power so that everybody can eat. And this doesn't just mean humanity, it means all life does this. But with Judy Garland, she was born on 9 Aj, and the entire story of The Wizard of Oz was about agriculture. You can check with Oren Lyons. He's an esteemed elder of the Oneida Indians. He talks about this because he lived not far from Frank Baum, and so he knew the story. The Wicked Witch was Mother Nature, and the winged monkeys were the Native Americans because they were protecting Mother Nature. But Mother Nature didn't have enough water in the Midwest for them to move out there to grow their crops. So when they killed the witch with the water, that's the symbology of that. And Judy Garland is the girl, the hope and the aspiration of moving west, and on and on and on. The Wizard of Oz is it's an artwork which I refer to on occasion because there are several examples in that movie. They did things a little different back then, so it was a lot more intuitive. It worked out better. Obama was born on Aj, so he gets along with everybody. I don't approve completely, understand his position, whatever. I don't want to get into the political aspects. Just, he broke a glass ceiling. That's great. He's born on Aj, gives you an idea of the type of character. When you get leaders, if you have children born on Aj, they automatically should be considered potential leadership candidates. So, but the important part is in a sentient human society, I think you get to work on that right away. They need to learn the importance of leadership, and they'll bite right into it, or they won't. And if they do, then you raise leaders. Very important. So, but Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud, both born on the same number and day, both born on 10 Aj, they farmed the human mind. Both of them were very good farmers. They were both outstanding in their field. And he's the source of the quote. These are the governors and diplomats. These are guys that they should be in charge. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. Well, he met Sigmund Freud, and the differences between him and Freud are very, very easily seen in their decans, not their day. The similarities are in their day and their number. They are right on it. Look at these two guys. Those are the two most commonly referred to dudes in a single field. The farming of the human mind, figuring out where's everything growing from, what's going on, how do we fix it. I just don't even need to go any further than that. They wanted humanity to grow. Bottom line, right? On to the fourth day, the second half of the second pair. This is Ish. Now, this is a very, they're all important days, but this one in particular, at our particular point in time, is one that I keep a very close eye on. We have a lot of issues with the planet. It's Mother of Earth, Day of Woman. This is the Day of Woman because women deal with the material things, but this is also the well. This is the dispensation of things, including wisdom. Um, there's there is magic in every one of the days. This one may have a much more idiosyncratic application of it, to put it lightly. But Henry Ford was born on the day of Ish, and you can see that the front of the Model T looks exactly like the glyph. And he also famously said you can have it in any color you want as long as it's black. Mang hexagram definitely talks about this. Iodine is purple. It was very highly sought after, considered rare. Nobody had purple dye, took forever. They didn't get it from iodine, but there it is. Iodine is a very interesting substance. I always like to say I've always worked in the construction industry, so if you step on a rusty nail, you take your foot and you soak it in hot iodized salt water, and it will be cured the next day. You do not need normally you don't need any medical attention at all, even if you've got an infection. I've done it many times, where your foot swells up like crazy and you can't even get it in your shoe. You soak it in that iodized salt water and it cures things. It's like a natural cure. And aspartic acid was discovered by a guy who was born on the day of Ish. Now, if I'm going to say this right, Etienne Ossien Henry, born on the day of 13 Ish. Henry Ford was born on the day of 12. Edgar Cayce, born on the day of 13. Very intuitive man, even if he didn't have his knowledge base correct, because if you get your knowledge base right and you've got those types of skills, well, you can become a next level type of intuitive person. Christine Lagarde is my favorite example of this entire thing, because she is, in my opinion, probably in charge of more things on this planet than anybody else, and she is a force to be reckoned with. She was born on 1 Ish. She's also born in the decan right adjacent to it, so she has what I call a pure avatar energy of this. So the dispensation, the well of the village, the person who keeps it and makes sure that everybody has some, that's what they're supposed to do. It can get nasty, but that's what they're supposed to do. Henry Ford, very good economist as far as his economy. Things were never better than when his workers were able to afford his product, right? Very simple economics, very basic. Make sure the community's taken care of. That's what that's all about. Also protecting the young. Xenon had very interesting because when I first was correlating the elements, and I got to this one, of course I'm going to be moving because I did start with tin after I identified lanthanum, because lanthanum would be the one that sticks out, but then you back right up to tin and go, hey, what's tin do, Let me see. Xenon actually means the guest, okay? And in the hexagram, the number 5 hexagram actually specifically talks about the 3 guests. And Zakine also can have a guest who is here to deliver a message or take it, and the symbol for this is the eagle. Transports messages to the creator. So you can have these profound experiences on this day. It as again, when we get into cysteine, I noticed, well, what's going on with cysteine? Is there anything that jumps out at me? Because I'm looking for, is there anything that is considered religiously significant, right? Immediately. And I said, man, it's not like I had to dig, you just look at it And it jumps right out at you. This is synthetically produced cysteine because it needs to be compliant with Jewish kosher laws and Muslim halal laws, so it's also available, albeit at a higher price. And I said, oh man, look at this, right? So I didn't include any examples for this. These people are usually pretty quiet, but I didn't dig. The guy who invented the test for color blindness was born on this day, and I thought that was interesting because, yeah, being colorblind is the way cysteine should be. Uh, the feathers, cysteine is extracted from feathers, which I thought, well, that's very interesting. That's also ties into everything else. And xenon is being looked at as fuel in space, right? I would hazard a guess that it's going to end up being very important as a fuel in space. The connection to sulfur jumped out, and I said, "Oh, well, that makes sense. It's not. This isn't one of those cases where they have uh, opposite pole connection, but it is a connection to sulfur, and sulfur is the quill. In the Hindu, the decan of sulfur is the quill. And you can see there's the image for it, and he's got the hair covering his body. He's using the quill. He's got a hat that's made out of feathers and hair, and it's just the whole thing is hairy and feathery. And I said, wow, that's interesting. That imagery is usually right on, and I haven't found it to be wrong. And so cysteine fit right in with that. Um, and then, of course, I thought of the Sistine Chapel, which it's the same word, but again, it's just this word just pops up, and there it is. So these are the feathers, the high flying, the sight, which is another aspect of the eagle, is its sight, and it is known as the day of the eyes. And these are the days, in the days of the eyes, and I'll speak to something a little bit deeper here, into the deeper understanding of when you're learning about different spiritual practices and the different knowledge in there, that there are things that do show up, and when you see them, it's actually called, you got your eyes opened, because, whoa, you saw it, and that is one of the days for that, and hence the stories about the guest. And so on that day, it is known, and this is the day where it comes from, that if the guest does show up, you are to be very kind and obliging, and it will be much to your advantage to be so. And that's ancient culture. Almost everywhere is unanimous about that story, and this is the day that where that story is found most prevalent. And its pair, the pair for zucchine is glutamic acid, but glutamic acid is not the pair with glutamine. So very important, because Ajmak is it is wisdom, but it's not intelligence. Those are two different things. And but Ajmak is the day to get into peace using wisdom, and it is all about that. It advises about contending the issue and forgiveness, because this is the day that's going to bring up these issues, and to bring up this aspect of forgiveness, where people, if they hang on to something, it just hangs around, and it just depresses everybody. It causes a problem biologically, actually. And so to contend the issue um, is a major factor in the biological life interface. And it does come up, and for human beings, absolutely, it's a big giant issue. My only example from humans on this one is John Henrik Clarke, because I thought, well, I don't want to I had such a hard time getting examples of women and people of color. And I said, well, here is a great example for this one, because he is a historian. He is a very wise man, and he is born on 9 Ajmak. And so if there's a historian who pursues that field and he's born on that date, I'm going to be paying extra attention to that guy. And he's got a video, A Great and Mighty Walk. I highly suggest, even if it's bad quality video, don't worry about it. The content is exquisite. And it comes from wheat. Wheat is one of the oldest plants, right? So we get this from wheat. And it's an excitatory neurotransmitter. This is exactly what we need for intelligence. We need to be able to process this stuff. It gets everything going. The image of the aurora borealis is on the day of 1 Ajmak, and it is, this may sound like woo-woo, but I'm telling you, that is the day of the ladder in the sky with the angels going up and down on it. And sure enough, look at that. So the day 1 of any day is the beginning of a trecina. It is the real strength of that day, because you're going to have a whole 13-day period of that day. That's how the trecinas run. They start on day 1. So that day, October 7th, would have been the beginning of a 13-day trecina of Ajmak that runs until the 20th, and or the 19th, however that works out. And lo and behold, the guys who were in Norway said, wow, these are not the usual lights in the sky. And those statements came from people who are there photographing these lights all the time. And they said, wow, that's highly unusual. And when I saw it, I said, well, let me check the day. Boom, there it is. Okay. So if you have the dreams of going up into the sky, or you're in an elevator, somehow you're going up. It's the dream is that you're going up, or that you have other things going on where it's up and down, or up into the sky, or up into the solar system. That's that day. Check it and you'll see. So these have a biological effect. These energies have a biological effect on our dreams. They have a physical effect on our world. They have a major impact on our function, and they absolutely are behind the formation of the amino acids and the certain elements. And in this case, calcium or cesium. And believe me, water is the symbol of emotions, and when you put calcium in the water, it goes bananas. And that is absolutely the appropriate visual. So Noj, beginning of a new pair, we come into Noj, and even though this is also glutamine, and even though it also talks about the brain, it's not talking about wisdom, it's talking about the brain. We're getting specific. This is a processing issue here, and we're talking about food for the brain itself, and the pineal gland. Talks about the pineal gland. So this is the sense of direction and all of these things. Tor Bergeron was the guy who stated, he proposed a mechanism for the formation of precipitation in the clouds. He was born on 11 Noj. Noj specifically states, may be able to read the clouds. I couldn't believe it. I said, wow, there's the guy who read the clouds, and there it is. Straight from the horse's mouth, they said, may be able to read the clouds. Noj is also the augury, so people that can track the birds, and they know what's going on with the weather just by watching the birds, and that's a thing. The woodpecker intelligence is the words that are associated with Noj, center of the brain. Put a little picture of the walnut on there. It's just one of those examples of something that looks like a brain and feeds the brain. And barium is the element, and barium is not used for wisdom. It is used to gather intelligence. Intelligence is just data. You go and find the data, bring the data back, you give it to Ajmak and let them sort it out. But it is intelligence gathering, not wisdom. Very big difference. A lot of people say, wow, you're intelligent. What does that mean? You're gathering a lot of data? Because intelligence is not wisdom. Very important difference between the two. I also put the imagery of the woodpecker skull on the top. Very, very reminiscent of the first masks that people wore during pandemics. Apparently, it turned out later those were the smart people who had gathered data and decided that maybe they should do something to protect themselves, and so they did. Benjamin Franklin, oh, that's a picture of an x-ray, because we use barium, and we just swallow this, and they make you drink this whole thing, right? And then they blast you with x-rays, and then they can find out what's going on in your stomach. So barium doesn't cure anything. It just, well, I don't know if it does or not, but I'm just saying barium isn't used for that in that function. In that function, it is used so that they can illuminate your digestive tract to analyze it and gather intelligence. Ben Franklin is born on 13 Noj. This is the day, 13 is the day of the polymaths, the people who are really good at a whole bunch of study stuff. They can do mathematics and things like this, the polymaths. I've found a few, I've got quite a few examples of polymaths born on that day. I just decided to throw these guys up because they're more pertinent. And Frank Morgan, obviously, with reading the clouds and the augury and the directions of the wind, gathering intelligence, he played the wizard in The Wizard of Oz, but he actually didn't have real wisdom. He couldn't do what he was saying, but he did gather intelligence, and he did have a balloon, and he was able to get her home. He did know which way that was. So that's a beautiful portrayal of the energy of Noj, was Frank Morgan in The Wizard of Oz, and he played the role perfectly. So it works like that too. Glycine. So this is the only amino acid that can form without water. And it's on a Earth Day. Not the first Earth Day, but it's on the day of T-Hox is the electricity. So I said, wow, if it doesn't use water, what does it use? Well, it's on T-Hox. Well, there you go. So it probably uses some kind of electromagnetic energy to form. That would be, I mean, how does it form without water? That's bizarre. Must be electromagnetic, right? I don't know. That's my guess. I'm not a scientist. At least not that kind. But Nikola Tesla was born on the day of electricity. Of course he was. Number 10. He was born on 10 T-Hox, the manifestation of electricity. Lanthanum is used in every electrical thing we got going on right now. It's becoming very highly coveted. Lanthanum is very important in the electrical storage and everything to do with electronics. Lanthanum is there. It's also to do with the lighters. So the flint is T-Hox, and the flint of lanthanum is used in the lighter flints. So when you spark it, that's what gives you that spark. And that the flint is the thing that you can just pick up rocks and make sparks with, that is very similar to lightning. So you can imagine that early men may have assimilated those two things and said, wow, and it is a thing, by the way, so they are related. How, I don't know, but that is a thing. the flint is a major, major energy. It's a major day in every cosmology everywhere. And so, no shortage of examples here. I crammed them all in. The Patronus Towers were designed by Cesar Pelli, if I'm saying that right. He is born on 8 Hawks. That is the iconic image of, if you were going to imagine this energy, that is exactly what it is. It is pools of water separated with a little bit of spray water in between, giant electrode towers with a connection at some point. Okay, there it is. And lanthanum, that picture of lanthanum I have there, that's at the tip of an electrode. That's where they use it. It also has a pyramid tip. I thought that was very interesting. It's very common. They make the tip a pyramid shape. It's very efficient, and that's exactly what the glyph is. The ancient glyph of Tihox matches the top view of the modern lanthanum electrode. And that's a thing. The glyph is squiggly lines. I think that connotes the electricity, but it's also the four-way split of a pyramid from the top view. Also the tip of a knife. This is also the day of the knife. So there's just so much to it. The National Park Service was born on, they formed it and they had the ceremony on the day of 13 Tihox. Joseph Louis Gay Lusick was born on 10 Tihox, the same day in that system as, I don't think it's the same year, but it might be, I don't know, I didn't check that. Let's see, nope, I didn't check that. I just wrote down 10 Tihox. He is born on 10 Tihox, and he's the one who discovered that water is made of 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. So that's pretty primary. When the water comes in the sky, the lightning follows. That's how we know it. This is the process. And we're going to go to the rain, because when you first know about the storm, you see the clouds start moving in. That's Noj. Then the lightning comes. That's Tihox. And then after that is the rain, and that is the day of Kiwak, and it is histidine, and it is cerium, and it is all these things. And the first thing you're going to think about when you have histidine is the sneeze. And what more is a sneeze than when a cloud lets loose of its load? And Kiwak is the sacred expression, water, voice, and verb. It's the rain. It is the purification. It is the day for smudging. It is the cleaning of the environment. When you burn the cedar, it is for burning the sage in the home. You purify your home. And Hoseo Ku, I don't even bother trying to pronounce those hexagrams. That's why I write them up there. The hexagram there talks about here we see the clouds but no rain, and then later in the hexagrams and now the rain comes. And so it's actually describing the process where you start out knowing that the rain is coming, but it doesn't quite hit you yet, and then it hits you, and then everything is beautiful. Rain cleans everything, and it's just a wonderful, beautiful thing we have. Cerium is used for the catalytic converters. You slap them on the back of the nasty old cars, and out pops much better air out of the back of the vehicle. That's where it's used. It's also used in self-cleaning ovens. So cerium is used in cleaning. Kiwak is all about cleaning. Everything's all about the rain. The rain is all about cleaning. It goes on and on. This one, I could do 1,000 examples. There's so many scientists born on this day, so many doctors. Otto van Guericke, let's see what he did. Let's see, he's the one who proposed a mechanism for the formation of precipitation. So unlike the other guy who put out the thing in Noj about the clouds, this guy proposed a mechanism for the formation of precipitation, and he also constructed a barometer. So very well-known scientist, born on 9 Kiwak, who did that. James Clerk Maxwell. This is a very important guy in physics. He is born on this day as well, and not on the same day as Tesla. No, but he brought together electricity, magnetism, and light as different manifestations of the same phenomena. He first used the equations to propose that light is an electromagnetic phenomenon. So Kiwak really is the eloquence of expression and diversity of application of cleaning air and water. This is a day a lot of healers and doctors and very, smart, expressive people are born. There's all kinds of stuff you can find in Kiwak. Other scientists, just off the top, I put here in my notes. Roger Penrose, born 1 Kiwak. He inspired M.C. Escher. That's why I like him. So he inspired a collaboration between science and art with his triangle. Robert Bunsen, the Bunsen burner, that guy was born 7 Kiwak. Thomas Burr Osborne discovered vitamin A, born 13 Kiwak. Vitamin A is the vitamin A deficiency is the leading cause of preventable childhood blindness. Vitamin A deficiency claims the lives of 670,000 children under 5 annually. That's crazy. Those are crazy numbers. And that guy discovered vitamin A. So this is a very anciently known day to have healers and people of all various kinds of skill sets in cleaning and purifying the body. Okay. Sneezing due to histamine associated sensory neural stimulation. That's crazy. Hypersecretion from glandular tissue. Nasal congestion due to vascular engorgement associated with vasodilation and increased capillary permeability. That's crazy. Cerium doped YAG phosphor is used in conjunction with blue emitting diodes to produce white light in most commercial white LED light sources. So the lightning and the water, it's also used to polish glass. I mean, just everything about Kiwak is just over the top. This is an absolute hit with histidine and cerium. There's no moving those. There's no moving lanthanum. There's definitely no moving barium and glutamine. And we just keep going. And here's the set of this is the second part of the pair of Kiwak, but it's considered to be a twin with the next one, isoleucine and leucine. Also, it's a twin in both systems. Praseodymium is considered the twin of neodymium, and isoleucine, is named. The next one is leucine. So everybody assumes these are twins, but they're not. These are not the same pair. It's a bridge in a process. That's the way I see it, and that's the way it is in the other two systems. That's the way I bet it's going to work out in these. Ashpu is the gun. The expression gets a little protective in Ashpu. There is intelligence here, high intelligence, and of course, Kiwak and Ashpu, I think, produce a very high number of very good scientists. But you have to be real careful with some of the ones that come out in Ashpu. And Alfred Nobel was, dynamite cannons. He built these cannons. That's where he got all the money to fund the prize. I'm not okay with that. Gunpowder, whatever. The gun is Ashpu. It is the eyes. It is in the glyph. It's even in the glyph. Look at the glyph. It looks like a gun. And that is not the intention of the glyph. The glyph is drawn from repeated, I'll call them shamanic verifications of very specific elemental geometry associated with the day. That's how those are done. Same thing with the I-Ching. They've got, their way of doing it. It's cultural, but they match. They have their cultural differences, but they match. It always struck me as odd. Why does Albert Einstein stick his tongue out when he has those pictures? So I just threw that in there because that's probably why he's tasting the air. That's how he wants to present himself. He was a genius, after all, and can't doubt him. Ted Cruz was born on Ajpu. He went to Cancun on the day of Ajpu is when he got caught going to Cancun. Okay? So there's two energies in Ajpu. Definitely, we keep an eye on that. Isoleucine, very much like its polar opposite, valine, in that it is in the body. It has to do with strenuous physical activity, although isoleucine, from what it looks to me, this is more about recovery, to boost up energy levels in recovery from strenuous activity, whereas valine is more about enabling that endurance during the physical activity. So that's the difference, but there is definitely a similarity, and that is also very much in the days as well, because Ajpu would be the opposite of the last day, which is Z, and Z is the hunters. Those are the wolves or the dogs that hunt in packs. They have to chase their meat a long way before they catch it, and Ajpu is definitely the hunters, but unfortunately they do a lot of hunting humans. But yeah, there's other skills you can get into with all of that. Praseodymium, neodymium, isoleucine, leucine, very much all of that, but Ajpu and all of the other mentioned elements belong in a pair with Kiwak and cerium and histidine. This is why, because when you get over into this, and you'll notice this hexagram has the upward open spaces, and the next one's going to have the downward open spaces. This one also has two energies, and this is chaos in the family when the mind has lost control, and it's leucine. And so I went immediately, probably the third amino acid I checked, I said, well, let me look at leucine, because there's got to be something in there that makes everybody crazy. Because it has to be. Like, there has to be something in there about that. Otherwise, this whole thing is a waste of time. And so sure enough, it only took like 5 seconds, and it's causes delirium and neurological compromise and can be life-threatening. It's like, yeah, okay, no surprise there. You got to be careful with this. Very strong energy. It's breast milk. So the day is actually, the glyph represents the areola of the nipple and the breast. And leucine and lysine come from, you get this from the milk. That's where they found it. So that's interesting. Carl von Welsbach, he is born on 13 Emosh. And let's see, what did he do? Where'd he go? Oh, he separated, Carl von Welsbach, he separated didymium into the elements neodymium, praseodymium. He also separated Ytterbium and lutetium, which is the polar opposite. I thought that was amazing. I said, this guy nailed it. Carl von Welsbach nailed it. He separated these twins, and then he also separated Ytterbium and lutetium, which is the polar opposite. Lutetium is not in the 20 days. That, again, that's another bridge to a completely separate cycle. Ytterbium is the last one in this 20-day cycle. He did a bunch of stuff there. George Gamow, not small, he did the Big Bang. What a surprise, on Emosh. That's also the day of 9/11. So 9/11, chaos in the family, the Big Bang. Uh, this is all right in this stuff. A quote, I put this quote from the hexagram, ancient Chinese hexagram, shows us the city wall returned into the moat. It is not the time to use the army. That is exactly what everybody says about 9/11. We invaded countries that did not attack us. We didn't solve the crime, and we were wrong to do so. But there was calamity in the family, and the city walls were returned into the moat. And that was 6 emotion on that day. So that's how accurate this stuff is. It's in our biology, it's in our events, it's in everything. Whether or not somebody was using that to plan it, I don't know. Not going to hazard a guess. But maybe down the road. Even if you announce the orders to the people of his own city, but however correct and firm, he will have cause for regret. And that is true. You should have cause for regret if you killed 1 million people in a foreign country for something, that was maybe done by somebody else. I don't think a country attacked this. Leucine and Howard Hughes. There's alcoholism is also mentioned in emotion. There's a lot of different things. Hypnotism and alcoholism and chaos in the family when the mind has lost control. Howard Hughes had a brilliant mind. He had a very enigmatic personality, or you could call it idiosyncratic. He was born on 3 emotion. He did a lot of stuff. He could fly. He did a lot with the airplanes, but then what happened at the end? The city wall was returned into the moat, and his empire just kind of seemed to go out with a bang, right? And in the future, important note here, we're using a lot of neodymium magnets for the wind turbines, and that's very important because the next day is the wind. And the other part of George Gamow, the body parts of emotion are the blood, glands, and genitals. So George Gamow was involved in that. He was involved in the 64 codons. So he was involved in intimately looking at the blood. And so that was his, good scientist there. Very accurate, no need to doubt him. When he says Big Bang, I have no doubt that is his impression. Nobody else has to agree with that. Might have some other findings, but I have no question that might be something he would find. It's like, well, yeah, it must have been a Big Bang. Well, of course, you're projecting again, right? Possibly. We don't know yet. We'll find out. Neodymium also acts as an anticoagulant. That's pretty interesting. An estimated 1,700 emergency room visits for people swallowing neodymium magnets and getting their gastrointestinal tract pinched, right? Pinches the soft tissue. Leucine, unique amino acid linked to growth. Animals that grow quickly. This is the breast milk. Absolutely. The important thing about this that could probably be used in society more than anything is if you kept track of people's days, you would know where the women who produce enough breast milk for 2 babies when they might only have 1. Because the women born on this day are going to be very abnormally productive with breast milk. And natural breast milk is by far better than anything called formula. We should know that by now. And that takes us to the next one. Because, like everything else, breasts and breast milk and all of this stuff is a billion dollar industry, isn't it? The lysine was the only amino acid that was associated with a massive price fixing case, right? And I saw that right away, and I said, oh, that fits right in. Lysine is, at the time, it was the largest price-fixing case in U.S. history. Um, the amino acid also depresses the central nervous system. This is the day of Christianity. Karl Ritthausen, born on 2 Emosh. Uh, he discovered aspartic acid, or no, aspartic acid and glutamic acid. Proteins. Oh, he was into the protein bodies in the grains, legumes, and linseed. Contributions to the physiology of seeds for cultivation, nutrition, and fodder. So, very important work early on with the amino acids in the history of it. Karl Rittenhausen, not surprising, coming from the Tracina of Emosh on the day of Eek. So it's actually the not just taking the breast milk or the seeds and the grains, which is on Emosh also, is the grains, and the rain is the spreading of these seeds and the process of all that. And I thought that was very interesting. So he fulfilled his function perfectly. Bill Lawrence is a man who uses samarium in his guitar pickups. So this, again, the wind energy and the energy of transmitting energy. He uses the guitar pickup as a very specific device used to amplify and augment the sound of the guitar, and I thought that was very interesting. He was born on 7 Eek. I've got tons of other examples. I thought those were the best ones to personify the energy of Emosh and Eek as a pair. Um, but by far the number one example I will always use for Eek is on the day of September 15th, 2008, was the day of 6 Eek, and that is the day that Hurricane Ike, Category 4 hurricane, the winds of Ike had swept all the way across the country in a matter of 2 days, and they hit New York City. And I know this because I live upstate. The wind hit us the night before, and we lost power to 30,000 people. I think in New York they lost over 100,000 lost power. But Hurricane Ike, the winds of Hurricane Ike, very intuitive, these scientists who name these storms, by the way, track it all the time. No mistake there. The Hurricane Ike hit New York City at 9 a.m. on the morning of September 15th, 2008. And once again, we have a massive calamity with money and exchange and chaos in the family when the mind has lost control. That's why breast milk and wind are two things that in this process, leucine and lysine, I can just about guess where all those amino acids are going just because they fit. And sure enough, they had to do with milk, and they also had to do with price fixing. And I don't know, what more can I say? I mean, what are you going to do? This is the Catholic Church, the most expensive religion on the planet. Where does the money go? We're not sure. Then we go to the next pair is Akabal. This actually is the house. So the Kaaba, it's a very interesting thing because Kaaba in the world of Islam or Muslims that's the cube that they have at where they're Mecca and this, right? Well, Kaaba, Akaba'al in the Quiche Maya, this is the ancient Quiche Maya version we're using here. These are the house, the builders and designers. They use the blocks and the cubes. It's the cube and the things you use to build, bricks and blocks and things like this. The house. But the house is everything. In the worldly context, the Akabal is associated with the insects that spread all over the earth. You can find them anywhere. Also, the certain types of sea life that you can find anywhere, like a sand dollar, very, very indicative of Akabal geometry. Methionine is concerned with angiogenesis, which is the the growing of the new blood vessels and the capillaries. So that's the building blocks of life. You've got to deliver, you colonize, right? The building of the blood vessels are actually the colonization of life, the actual thing that builds us. And I thought that was very interesting, fits in very, very well. Um, the I-Ching hexagram is very specific. The union of men we find in the remote districts of the country. That's where the capillaries would be getting built, right? The remote districts where they don't exist yet. Um, but the union of men must be based entirely upon public considerations without a taint of selfishness. And sure enough, Boris Johnson and Donald Trump, both born on that day. Trump had to build his wall. Johnson had to do his Brexit. And they acted selfishly, and their product was division, wasn't it? Instead of collaboration and intelligent design and building, like Frank Lloyd Wright, pictured on the right, born on 4 Akabal, and Zaha Hadid, the most famous female architect, in my opinion, the best architect in the world. I think she passed recently, not sure, and I have to check, but either way, she is definitely, in my lifetime, the best female or the best architect in the world. And they built wonderful things. Frank Lloyd Wright, notably, very noticeably, building in the rural districts of the country. And he did it, he didn't use complete unselfishness, but he did produce some amazing things. People like him. All the houses that he built here, around here, are very highly regarded. People think they're wonderful. I think they're expensive, but I think they're nice. I like to see them. I want to see art in our. I'd like to see a lot more art in our building. We're way more capable than we are. We're building very bland right now in the world. We're busy with other things. We're building our network. We're building the network that is more concerned with something else. And this one, whoa, Ytterbium, right? Ytterbium was named after Europe. It actually was. And it's the most reactive rare earth element. Did I have some other? I don't have any notes on Ytterbium, but it fits right there. And yeah, Akabal is the house. Europe, yeah, very much fits right into that. The function of phenylalanine and the function of gadolinium and the function of the day of Kat and the function of the Tayu hexagram are absolutely identical. I did not expect to see such a precise correlation here. Usually there's some ambiguity, but not in this case. It's directly connected also to the tyrosine, which makes it even more compelling. But the fact that phenylalanine was concerned with neuromodulation is extremely right in line with exactly how the human examples play out. Cot is the day of the net, and it's very specific geometry, what's his name? Buckminster Fuller built the geodesic dome, and it's like a net, and he's born on that day. I didn't include him here, but Bezos is, everything is Bezos, right? Everything. He's taking all of it. He's all over the net. Berners-Lee, he invented the net. Stuart Brand, back in the day before the net, he had the whole Earth catalog. And in that catalog, it was his stated intention and his desire and his dream and everything that every single thing on the earth would be available in his catalog. And lo and behold, him and Jeff Bezos, born on the same day, and Jeff Bezos took on Stuart Brand's project of burying the 10,000 year clock in the mountain. And so, yeah, I keep track of those guys. I watch them all the time, and I know exactly what's happening. So, but Foreman, George Foreman is another example of Cott. He's a great example of Cott in the I would say in the general arena of humanity, because while he did name all of his sons George, he just is a humble, very powerful man, right? And that's, to me, epitomizes this day of Cott. It's a very he's a great example. If you want, like, well, what does this look like when it manifests as a good human? Is like, well, there it is. And he was a very humble fighter. He didn't he might have gotten angry a few times, but he always made up. He wasn't he was into boxing, but that he could have done anything. He actually made more money with his grill, because Cott is also the sacred fire. It's energy from the sacred fire. So it's not the fire itself, it's just energy produced from the sacred fire. So he made more money on his grill than he did in all of his boxing. And oh, and then there's that guy, Isaac Newton. as if we needed to pile on here, but I'm not gonna. I mean, there's so many more examples. But gadolinium, like gravity is everything, right? Everything. This is a force that affects everybody. So naturally, you could think of gravity as a net, or a lot of people might consider it to be like one of these things like, we're under quarantine on this planet, or some weird, however you want to think of it. Gravity is a weird thing that affects everything. So naturally, somebody born in this day is the one who put out the physics of what that might be. But gadolinium, you only need, and boy, gadolinium explains the hexagram and the day to a T, is how it works in humanity, because it says you need as little as 1%, and gadolinium will significantly improve the workability and resistance to oxidation at high temperatures of iron and chromium and related metals. So you don't need a lot of gadolinium. We don't need a lot of Jeff Bezos, but we're getting a lot of him, right? Berners-Lee, right? We got 1% of him, and now we build the rest, right? It's just here now. He's not. Berners-Lee isn't getting a check for every person that signs onto the internet, right? So that's the proper proportions of what you got to watch out for here with this stuff. Phenylalanine, I'm willing to bet, doesn't take much. But neuromodulation is the control, or the modifying and controlling influence on something. So that's in your brain, like, right? And that's what they do, and that's what Bezos is doing. That's how it works. Biology is the same. These are all the same. Proline is extremely compelling. In the Maya 20 days, Khan is the feathered serpent. Khan is the leader of the village, or the leader of the head, the male head of household in most cultures throughout a lot of history, in many, many languages. A lot of people are very well aware of that. Khan, you're the Khan. And that's really kind of what it means. But in its best sense, it is the highly developed leadership role that is based in knowledge and wisdom. And the most interesting thing this does in the amino acids that is already there in the I-Ching and the days is it doesn't act on its own. And so right off the bat I said, wow, proline is the only proteinogenic amino acid which is a secondary amine. That's crazy. And I said, wow, because the nitrogen atom is attached to both the A carbon and to a chain of 3 carbons that forms a loop. It is synthesized from glutamate. And I said, oh man, and that's exactly how it is in the days. Khan has to listen to Ajmak, and Ajmak is the glutamic acid where glutamate comes from, right? And that is exactly how it works in the days. That's how it works in the human when everything's functioning properly in society. That is how it works, because in our society, the way we have it now, the Khan is the judge in the court, and the judge in the court, and sometimes the leaders, not so much the politicians per se, but the guys in the court who have the last say over these issues. Because don't forget, the issues are what's going on over there in the family. So you have a judge in the court that's supposed to be, okay, this is going to be the end of this issue, and that's what happens when you go to court. You're gonna figure this out. It's really part of this biological process, and it's also so that's how it happens. And it's just amazing for me to see the biological process imitating the actual personal examples of people. I don't have any judges in here as examples. I could find a million if I needed to. We don't always get the right judges, by the way. Sometimes this stuff is done politically. We're not doing things very well on that level right now. As far as a biological organism, we're not behaving properly. But I can show you the examples and say, wow, look at this. This is the proper thing. The father of thermodynamics on the day of fire, in the fire quadrant, is the father of thermodynamics, and he wrote one book, and he published one thing, and it was called The Reflections on the Motive Power of Fire. I thought, wow, that's so right on. That is so right on. That guy nailed it. He nailed his purpose, and that was a slam dunk in his lifetime to do that. We use terbium in trichromatic lighting. This is shining all the different kinds of light on something so that we can really bring it into its proper light. This is what happens in a court, right? This is what happens when you're ironing out issues. This is what happens when you're also, Khan is the feathered serpent, which is the Kukulkan, the high priest. And so you also have to be a master of yourself, and you have to examine the self in this process. So this is the day of the success of that. This is where this is the energy that promotes that in all biological life. And so I thought, that is incredible. And that's exactly what proline does. It's an osmoprotectant. And I know it's a little heavy, but in Tefranol D, this is Khan chained to rope. Rope is a decan. It is the polar opposite decan from Khan of the days. And that is in a different cycle, but those things matter too. And it is very, very important in the original correlation of the days with those 20 elements, because Tefranol D really was just one of the solidifying elements that were, you can't move terbium. It has to be on the day of Khan. You can't move it. And you can't move iron. It has to be on the day of rope. That's an ancient Hindu image of rope, and it's the only one that shows iron chains. It's just the way it is. This is built into everything, and biology in the spiritual world is no different. The intuitive world is no different. When these things are refined and done over and over and over for centuries and eons and millennia, that's is what you're going to end up with. And it just nails it. So Tefranol D is no surprise. It's perfect. It's a great material. Alberto Giacometti, born on 1 Khan, he epitomizes the energy, the vision of what Khan means, and he put it all into one statue, and that is the highest selling statue, I think, the highest priced sculpture in recent years. It's sold for more money than anything else, so it's one of the most prized works of art on the planet, and it is just it's a great work of art, and so a lot of good things to look at here. The only reason I put up Theresa May, she is 9 con, but there's a judge, and she has a judge type of a politician. But she wore that chain on her day, because on her day that she was, I guess they call it, she was inaugurated or whatever they want to call it over there. She wore that chain. She wears these big necklaces, but on that day she wore that chain, and the chain is very, very, very closely symbolic with this day as well in the human examples. But and Pat Benatar, she is a great example of a woman born on con, because she's a badass on the stage, right? And she had her songs. She was just a real strong, right, sovereign woman. One of the first. She took over rock and roll or just pop, just general music, popular music in America. Her songs all fired up. Fire and Ice, Love is a Battlefield, Heartbreaker, Sex as a Weapon, Invincible, and last but not least, my favorite, Hell is for Children. So she was very strong in her poetry as well as her music. Great example, great all around. Just very interesting to see Proline mix into this batch of already existing heavy specific evidence perfectly. And so, yeah. The other example, Leonard Sadi Carnot. Let's see, what do I got here? He was a French mechanical engineer. Oh, that is the guy. Yeah, that's him up there. That's the... his name's not showing in the thing, but that's his name. Nicolas Leonard Sadi Carnot, I guess, if I'm saying that right. He's the one who is described as the father of thermodynamics. And then we have the Day of Death. Con and Kamei are a pair. So, what happens when you get out of court? So, very confusing to have a day of physical death, because every other day is like an animal or some kind of function or, some kind of weird word. But Kamei, yes, it's kind of symbolized by physical death, but not physical death in the way that most people think. Like, you wouldn't go around the days and think, oh, it's almost Kamei, am I going to die? No, that's not a thing. However, it is the day that's very concerned with this. And here's, we're really going to nail it right here. Ready for this one? So, on the day of Kamei is born the World Health Organization. Kamei is symbolized by the great horned owl, and we call the World Health Organization that keeps track of the mass casualty events, we call it WHO. And the actual call, I made sure to look this up. I kind of knew it already, but the great horned owl does make a couple of different calls, but the main call is a WHO. And so that is very interesting to me. It's just one of those little correlations, but again, very interesting. And in the U hexagram, it talks about he who sees a thing before it comes. A lot of people sense death. The owls, a lot of people claim the owls will sense it and they'll come around. If they're not bringing death, they're not demon spirits, they might sense it because they have extra stuff going on. Owls are very interesting biologically, and I guarantee you at some point when we get to it, we're not there yet, we will be able to examine owls, and we're going to find out that they are extremely sensitive to a number of things going on in our physical environment that we are not. Again, you would call it the invisible. I'm not so sure it's invisible. I just think we haven't seen it yet. So Ugo Sarletti is born on the day of 10 Kamei. And he made this device where you clamp it onto somebody's head and you electrocute them until they return to sanity. And that is his decan in the Hindu images, the only set of images I'm using in this to depict decans. And the only reason I'm showing it is because I use him as this example for this all the time, because he exactly created the device that is shown in an image that was drawn 1,500 years ago, depicting the 10-day time period of his birth time. But he's also born on Kamei. And what's really interesting about this, William Kouwenhoven is the inventor of the defibrillator that everybody uses in a hospital. And William Kouwenhoven was born on the day of Noj in the Trecina of Tihax. Okay, or I mean, and not in the William Kouwenhoven, the inventor of the defibrillator, was born on the day of Noj in the Trecina of Kamei. Ugo Cerletti was born on the day of Kamei in the Trecina of Noj. So Noj, don't forget, that's the brain, that is the head, right? Your actual skull in your brain. And so Williams was doing it. He was finding this. He found this way to shock your heart with electricity, and Ugo Cerletti was shocking the head. And I just found that extremely interesting. That is, those guys are diametric. I don't know what you would call that. I would call them, like a mirror image of each other in the days, in the calendrically speaking, and in the amino acids. Kouwenhoven and Cerletti are mirror images of each other. They each were from one thing, went to the other, and then he went from that thing to that thing he was from, and they both shocked the body. And so that's very interesting. But William Kouwenhoven wasn't born on the day of Kamei, but he was born in the Trecina of Kamei, and he did invent the defibrillator. And dysprosium is very interesting also. This is very interesting technology with refrigeration, and that's what I'm depicting there, is the process of the magnetocaloric effect and its use in refrigeration. And it's due to the presence of gadolinium is what's going on there. But dysprosium is a major component in that. And so I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. Taking energy from the sacred fire, cooling it down with dysprosium, and finding refrigeration. That's very interesting to me. I think that's probably got some boy, who knows? Maybe one day we could have refrigerators that you don't have to plug in. Wouldn't that be nice? I would not surprise me if it came from the day of Kamei, right? What do we do with bodies if you don't want them to rot? You put them in the refrigerator. So refrigeration coming from Kamei would not surprise me, and it's actually already here. It's just really expensive. Yeah, so that's what we have there. And serine is let's see, what do I got for anything down for serine? Well, serine is the precursor to glycine, which is the electricity. So that's interesting as well, because the electricity, to see this link between glycine and glycine is the day of electricity, and Kamei is the day of electricity applied, the day of Frankenstein, basically. So if you think about this, in Frankenstein, I got both the guys who most closely fit Frankenstein are directly tied to this day. And then you have the electricity, and this day is attached right to it. So serine and glycine are intricately connected. I didn't have any other notes about what serine does, but I'm sure it does all kinds of things that are very much all up in about that. But the fact it's connected to glycine is probably the most important thing, and a refrigeration of dysprosium. 309. Very interesting here that 309 aids building strong bones and tooth enamel and speeds up a wound healing process after trauma or surgery by boosting up the immune system. So very specific in the application of this amino acid, because Kej is definitely known as the healing hand, and it's an energy that makes you feel better right away in a time that might be in trauma, or maybe it's even an emotionally, like you could be super emotional the day before, and then on this day you just feel fine. What happened? I don't know. I just feel so much better today. Wow, it's amazing. That happens on this day. And to see that 309 has that exact application in the healing process is also not a surprise. So the healing hand of Manique is actually one of the things it's called. It's the day name is under a different language. They call it the Day of Manique, and they sometimes it's pictured as the healing hand of Manique, and it's a very precise thing. And it's the four directions and the four corners. So the Fountain of Time by Laredo Taft is my favorite artwork by somebody born on Kej. I think it best typifies this entire energy. It's a very well-known and popular work of art. It's in Chicago. It's got Father Time standing in front of it, and it looks like just humanity happening in waves. And I thought that was very interesting, with holmium also looking very weird as a metal. Um, it's it, I didn't want to say it, but there's a lot of female porn stars that are born on this day. I didn't find that on purpose, because I went around checking all their day. It's just they pop up, like Stormy Daniels, born on this day, right? So there's just this thing about I don't know what that is, but that's what it is. There is a thing about it. There's a lot of women born on this day that feel very comfortable with doing a lot of different things that a lot of people might not approve of or want to get involved in themselves, but they do it, and it's an interesting thing to note. And I thought, well, isn't that funny that it's got that holmium is noted with Ho, and and then 309 has Ho in it, and I think I went and checked. I said, oh, there's only one other amino acid that has Ho in it, and it's the Day of Woman, the aspartic acid. So that was kind of funny, but I don't know what that connection is, whether it means something, but there it is. It's a synchronicity. Thought it was funny. Joseph Giov and Brian Greene, I have always said these two guys kind of perform the same job. Brian Greene is a he's into physics. He's into the string theory, which is very, very, very yeah, that's a good indicator of this day. I mean, sure, that's that. Yeah, that's, again, the other guy says Bing Bang, he's on emotion. This guy says string theory, he's on cash. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it's a good examination. It's a good product for that guy on this day. Joseph Giov kind of approached things the same way. He's a healer from California. He's actually the host. He was worked with the Mayan elders to gather all the people to bring them down there. So both of these people and other people on this day will gather others around them. They can bring groups of people together, and so that's the whole concept, right, of string theory. And it applies, and so they do that. They're like a hub. They can form the stable center of gravity in a group of people, I would say. So, and I find that that can be a very healing thing. Just that, to be in a group of people that are all brought together by one of these people. That's all I'm saying there. It's a very interesting biological process. It's also interesting sociologically, and it does seem to repeat itself, and that is a thing, yes. Holmium has the highest magnetic permeability of any element and is thus used for the pole pieces of the strongest static magnets. So that's those guys, and that's this, and it is very indicative. There's a lot of sculptors in this that are born on this day that will, they build, they want to sculpt out of granite. These guys don't want to paint. They're going to sculpt. This is the time of the four-legged. This is the stable, large animals, like, think of like deer and elephants and big four-legged animals. That's this time in the pantheon. And memory, too. There's a lot of memory that can go on there. But its pair, Keneal, is the pair to Kej. And this is where the memory comes in, like the elephant memory and that whole thing. Yes, that's a thing. And it leaks over into here. And here you have the connection back to bots. And the glutamic acid to tryptophan is a tricina. That is a 13-day ride. And it ends here, and this is where the issue is dealt with in the family after court. So it's the life of nature, it's the seed. In the hexagram, it's the issue with the mother and the father. The tryptophan has all kinds of stuff to do with this. It has to do with your memories. It does serotonin, melatonin, niacin, the auxins. It's just everything about this is, yes, it regulates the mood. It's just, there's a whole thing you can notice when you know the days. If you just go out into society on Keneal, there's a whole list of things you'll just notice. It's a very important day for family. It's an important day for the mothers. It's an important day for the fathers. It's an important day for the relationships between those. You may feel it come up. You may dream about it. You may think about it for some reason every time on that day. That could be an issue you need to address. And you have Ytterbium, which works in the bones. The bones have the memory. It just goes on and on and on and on. And yeah, so tryptophan is definitely going to and does mirror the energies of the days and the hexagram by dealing with all of those things. The regulating of the mood and the even the fact that, right, men on Thanksgiving would blame tryptophan, and it's not a thing. They would say, oh, there's tryptophan in the turkey, I gotta go take a nap while you wash the dishes. And I would say, well, next year we'll have ham, we'll talk about why men are pigs, right? Because tryptophan's not a thing, but men avoiding issues that they should deal with emotionally and with women and in the family is definitely a thing. It's getting less now. I think the world is definitely moving forward, but that has been a major issue, and it does relate to tryptophan. There's all kinds of processes that could regulate all kinds of things, yeah, regulating mood, depression, all this. I mean, come on, this is all a big part of it. So the reason I put the babe in there now, oh, by the way, remember, Leaky was born on bots, and there's two of the Leaky trimates. They're both born on 8 Keneal, specifically, both in the same tercina, both on the same day, so they're on the same day in number. There's 2 of them, and I know one is Jane Goodall, and the other one, her name, I'm going to butcher this, but I'll do it, Birut Guldicus. And she's the world's leading primatologist for orangutans. And her and Jane Goodall were both on Leakey's team. And they are both very great examples for this day. They definitely are people you should listen to if you're going to talk about the climate or the ecology or the economy of the earth and the species and all the animals and the life. These are people you definitely should be talking to if you want to know about all that, because this is the place where that is done. Sidney Altman, also born on the day of Keneal. He is somebody I looked at a very long time ago, I think right when he got his Nobel Prize, and I said, oh, I bet you he's born in the seed. And sure enough he was, because he figured out the seed, right? So he's got 9 Keneal, and he is in the decan of goat, which is adjacent. So he's again like Christine Lagarde. He is an avatar of the seed and the time of the seed. So I can make a prediction about him. He changed his major when he was in college. I know way too much about Sidney Altman. He's going to think I'm a stalker. He changed his major when he was in college and never really gave a clear reason. But it's what put him on the path to the Nobel Prize in RNA, right? I'm going to go out on a limb and I can predict the reason just based on the things that I know about the days. And that is that what most likely happened, and I don't know if I'll eat a hat. I'll eat like a piece of a hat, or I'll eat an edible hat if I'm wrong, if I ever find out, which I probably won't, because these people that have these terrifying experiences don't ever want to talk about them. They never want to talk about this. So they get terrified. But I think he had a very profound spiritual or inexplicable experience that changed his major in college. And I would be willing to bet that he also had those experiences as a child, and they were probably quite terrifying, because when you're hooked into the tryptophan, man, that's when the trypto hits the fan. And I'm telling you, these kids could have amazing experiences where they're levitating out of their beds, or so they feel. Amazing portals to the, I don't know, you could call it the invisible mycelial network of intelligence, whatever you want to call it. It exists. I've got thousands of stories, and I can walk up to anybody born during that time, talk to them, and I'll say, hey, did you have scary times when you were a kid? And they'll say, oh my God, how did you know that? And they get terrified. They don't want to talk about it, but some of them do. Anyway, so the next day, Toj, the last pair, this is the ears. And guess what? Tyrosine is definitely in on that. There's protection from impulse noise-induced hearing loss with novel SRC protein tyrosine kinase inhibitors, and it affects the hairs on the cochlea. So, yeah, it wasn't hard to find tyrosine or tyrosine having an effect on the ears, because that's what this day is. It's the listening. Roger Payne, born on 10 Toj, he is the scientist who studied the echolocation of whales and bats, and he is the first one, I believe, to propose that the whale songs could go across the ocean. He discovered that the calves of the whales, the younger members of the herd, or are they called a herd? I'll call them a herd. Would change the song. They get to add their own little piece at the end. I thought that was really beautiful. I think that the whales are singing their history and they're performing ceremony, because that's the way it fits in here. So it's like a ceremony, it's like communication, and it's like keeping your history, all these things combined, checking in with each other. The Theory of Sound by they call him Lord Rayleigh, but J.W.S. Rayleigh, yeah, that's still required reading in college in some, depending on your major, and he was born on 13 Toj. Edvard Munch, Cover the Ears, The Scream, the most famous painting. For what reason? Nobody will ever know. I mean, it's pretty good, but really, so, ought to get like, I don't know, 100 million, 200, 500 million dollars. How much is it? When are we going to quit? When it's worth $1 billion? I don't know. But he was born on 4 Toj. Toj is related to Kot. In the days, it is related to Kot. The Lin hexagram talks about the ceremony, the presentation of yourself is when you perform services that if you do this with a advance of wisdom and the proper heart space, that this you will have good fortune. It has to show the advance of honesty and generosity. It's an advance in the highest style. So it's when you present yourself. And so we do find some artists in this time, quite a few, where they present themselves, they bare themselves to the world and say, "Judge me, you bastards." And that's exactly what Madonna did, and she's born on this day. Um, yeah, so that painting is called The Scream, but he's covering his ears. So, thulium, very interestingly, again, this is related to the payment portion of this, because Toj is also the payment for the fire. Um, is it ceremony related to the Maya? They would talk about the fire and the payment to the fire. You have to, make a payment. You'd make a trade. You're trying to communicate with the invisible, so you have to trade something. And as I understand it, it's like everybody develops their thing, and so when different people in different cultures do ceremony, it's like they are conjuring this certain type of modality in their own mind, in their body, so that they can connect and send and receive messages. From what I don't know, but they do it, and it works, and I've seen it work. But Toj is related to Kot, and tyrosine is related to phenylalanine. So that I thought was very interesting. That is a direct hit, a confirmation of many, many, many confirmations that tell me. So tyrosine can be synthesized in the body from phenylalanine. So the sacred fire itself comes from the energy which is created by the fire. So that's very interesting. Ceremony itself comes from, and those are the only 2 days that mention that kind of stuff. So phenylalanine and tyrosine have a direct connection, which is only in the days, that connection between Toj and Kot. That's where that connection is too. So very interesting. And Kot is the phenylalanine, which is everybody all the time for everything. Jeff Bezos is coming to. You can't get a package unless you talk to Jeff. But if you talk to Jeff, you can get anything you want. Anyway, yeah, thulium, now, the payment of the fire, this is associated with money. Thulium is $3,000 per kilogram. I think it's the most expensive lanthanide. I checked it out. They said lutetium was more expensive. I don't know. I didn't see that on the chart I was on, but I don't consider lutetium in the same category with the lanthanides. Lutetium to me is that's the bridge between Ytterbium and lutetium is another one of those fake twin bridges. It's a twin, but it's not it's a bridge to a different cycle. So that's what gives the appearance of these twins. When you're not in the same pair, but you're going from one place to another, you've got to carry that energy over there. So it looks like they're tied and they stick together. But I don't consider lutetium in the same cycle. But thulium, by far, the most expensive lanthanide, and I thought that was interesting. That on the face of the $20 euro, they use it so that you can detect fraud, but they're using church windows and doors on the front of it. Well, that's interesting. What a combination, using the thulium so that you can't pass off counterfeit bills, and using the doors of the church, which, may or may not be known for money laundering. Who am I to accuse? I don't know. Probably, maybe, kind of, definitely. Hey, sure, yeah. So that's thulium. Then you have quan, the last one. This is the last one, if you're still alive. Tracina of glycine ends on valine. Okay, very important. So where lanthanum hits, where Tesla is, where the lightning hits, this is the tracina. This is where it ends. So if glycine can form without water, um, that might be why electricity can do it. And the tracina of, yeah, yeah, lanthanum ends on Ytterbium. That's right. Now, this is the day of Mendeleev. And how did Mendeleev get the periodic table? He got it in a dream. And he made sure to tell everybody that, made sure he wrote it down. And this is the day of the brain and the basic instincts. There's a lot of scientists and a lot of science that goes on down here because this is the day of figuring out the real finality of things, the exactitude of things. This is the day of squaring the circle. And it definitely is a huge, all the hallmarks of one thing ending and another thing beginning. There's a ton of stuff about it. Maslow was born on this day. Maslow's hierarchy, he got that from allegedly parts of it, the inspiration anyway, from the Blackfeet Indian. And Sharon Stone is born on this day. Her most famous, and this is a person who isn't even, she is known, like her most famous role in the movies was in the movie Basic Instinct. That is a direct quote on the Day of Z, by the way. I didn't put that on there for the movie. That's a direct quote. And, my information comes from the Quiche Maya, head of the elders, brought in their specialist, and they sat us down. There was like about 20 of us, and they gave us the 20 days. We all wrote them down. My notes, what I keep, is one thing, and that's on my site, the date checker, but there's other sources of the days, so I use many sources for the days. I try to use as many as I can and weed them all out, find the hits and the misses, and then I work with those. And Basic Instincts is definitely the body part for Z. It is, and that is the Sharon Stone movie. And in that movie is also the Nawal of sexuality. I don't know if Valine has a lot to do with that. I didn't find anything about it, although it does talk about endurance. But Valine does have something to do with the endurance. And but Basic Instinct is Sharon Stone undoes her legs and exposes herself, right? And it became the biggest scene ever, right? For whatever reason, I didn't even see anything. I just, okay, I saw the scene. I didn't, but okay. But in the movie, what really personifies the day is in the I-Ching hexagram of what happened and why she was doing it. And the men that were staring at her were acting like little kids, like it just blew them away, right? And I thought, wow, that is so right on for that day. Is the reaction of the men is the bigger story. So it even has it right in the first line of the hexagram, the descriptor, the looking of a lad not blamable in a men of inferior rank, but matter for regret in superior men. And that's exactly what was going on in that scene. Peeping out from a door, that's another part in there that can mean a few things, but shows one peeping out from a door, and it would be the advantageous if it were merely the firm correctness of a female. In other words, well, I hope there wasn't any hanky-panky going in there, because why do girls peep out of the door? And it also has a deeper meaning about peeping through the door. And I have met artists born in this day who paint endlessly doors, and I've seen it, and I was like, wow. You like doors, huh? He's like, yeah. It's like, oh, what's your birthday? I check it, I was like, oh yeah, there you go, on the day of the door. So pretty interesting. So Z is the door, and Valine is it's symbolized, also Z is symbolized by the dog or the wolf. The animal would actually be probably more accurately the wolf, in my opinion. I know the Maya like the tail of the dog. They want that symbol of the dog with the tail sticking up, like he's the leader dog. That's what they like for the actual symbol. That's not the glyph I have here, but that's the one they like the most. That's fine, I understand that, but they'll say the dog, and the dog is a good symbol for it also, because we're talking about the loyalty between humans and dogs, because we're back to the the first day is a monkey and the 20th day is a dog, right? There's a lot to that. There's definitely a huge amount of depth there. The relationship between man and dog is extremely ancient. That also has a lot to do with glycine, okay? Because that area, Tihox, is also an area where the dogs kind of come from. The wolf, and that all comes around there. That area, yeah. So that's a bigger story. The symbol of the wolf is important because the valine, the amino acid, is good qualities for long distance hunting or avoiding predators, but also for hunting. If you're hunting in a pack, the way a wolf or a dog does is they run their prey down and wear it down until it's just so tired they can't go anywhere, because usually deer or other four-legged animals will wear down a long time before a wolf or a dog. They can run all day long. So that's how they do it, and that I found very interesting, and that's exactly valine, and it is the polar opposite of isoleucine, which also has to do with that. This is specifically the endurance, performing long-distance sports. And I thought, wow, look at how specific that is. Performing long-distance sports. That's exactly what a dog does, or a wolf. So there you go. Okay, so then that's, the sputtering target. Yeah, you can look that up if you want. I'm not going to get into it. This is getting too long. The sputtering target thing is the use for Ytterbium. I think there's a lot more to be discovered with Ytterbium, although that is interesting and it does tie into glycine also. But there it is. Okay, have a good day. Thank you.